Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Welcome to the May 8th Sandag Board of Directors meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we get the flag up on the full screen? Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we jump into the meeting, I want to ask our clerk, Tessa, once more to confirm that we have quorum.
Yes, sir. We do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you. Housekeeping notes for today. We got great feedback after our last meeting, so we're going to continue using the cameras. I'm not sure that was the best choice the way it's gone so far today, but we're going to keep doing it because we'd like to be able to see your faces. As a reminder, that means you're going to be responsible for muting and unmuting yourselves. Please be mindful of this and keep yourself muted until you're called on to speak. If you have a question or comment, please turn on your camera and physically raise your hand or throw something at the screen or wave your arms or something, and I'll call on you. There should be a camera icon on the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen below the microphone icon, and that is what you click, that camera icon, to turn your camera on. You're not going to have the option to raise your hand virtually, so your camera is going to need to be on so that I'll be able to see you raising your hand. Also, there is a limit to how many cameras we can have on at the same time, though. So if it doesn't work the first time, please try again. And last note for today, before we get started, we do have a closed session item on today's agenda. In order to ensure the confidentiality of that item, primary board members will be asked to log out of this virtual session and log back into a separate virtual session for that specific discussion. You should have received an email yesterday.
Because they're limited, they can only show 6 screens at a time. If you need to ask a question,
mute your microphone.
Like you raise your hand.
Somebody's talking. If you could mute your microphone, please. You should have received an email yesterday with a link to log back into the virtual closed session. If not, please let Tessa know, and she can get that to you. We'll then log back into this meeting so that we can publicly report out on the closed session item when we are done. I'll remind you of those directions again when we get to that point in the meeting. Any questions? Seeing no questions, we're going to move the meeting minutes to the consent calendar and start with public and member comments. Tessa, do we have any public comments to be read into the record?
There are no public comments.
Perfect. Moving on to member comments. If any board member would like to offer any comments, this is the moment when you turn your camera on and wave your arms, and I'll call on you. Any member comments? Turn your camera on. Nobody coming with their cameras. All right. No further comments. We'll move on to item 3, PAC chairs. Any PAC chair reports? Catherine, did you have a member comment, or are you just popping up there? Okay. PAC chairs, any PAC chair reports? Mr. Desmond. You're muted.
I have nothing to report. Our item that we heard at the Transportation Committee is item 8 today, so that you'll be hearing that.
Okay, perfect. Any other PAC chairs? I'll take that as a no. Tessa, do we have any public comments on that item?
No, there are no public comments on item 3.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 4, the Executive Director's Report. Hassan.
Thank you, Chair Vass, and good morning to all of you. A few things to update you on. In light of the current public health crisis, Sandag is establishing a shared street grant opportunity to help our cities and the county create places for social distancing. A shared street grant can be used in the development of slow streets, which are streets temporarily closed, to provide space for bikers, pedestrians, families, and others to socialize distance during the public health crisis. The city of San Diego recently announced a number of streets in several neighborhoods. As you know, SANDAG canceled bike.
Getting some feedback. Please be sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking.
Canceled bike to work day, which was scheduled for next week. We are using some of its funding for the shared street grants. The grant program will award up to $5,000 to each city or the county in the region to assist with the implementation of temporary shared streets project. This is not a competitive application process. Only the 18 incorporated cities or the county of San Diego are eligible to claim funding. More information will be posted in the website. We do hope that between May 11th and May 22nd, we will be accepting the application, and the intention is to get this funding out as quickly as possible. I hope many of your cities and the county will take advantage of this opportunity. Moving into some good news now for the update on the state mandate of AB 805 and the independent performance auditor. This is truly good news for now. As you might recall, last month, the board approved our independent performance auditor, Mary Kay's request to file the test claim by April 4th with the Commission's state mandate. The test claim was filed on time, and after some adjustments requested by Commission staff, the test claim was accepted as now.
Hassan,
yes.
Can you pause for just a minute? We've got somebody with their microphone open and we're getting some serious feedback. So please double check that your microphone icon near the GoToWebinar control panel is muted.
Okay.
That's all you have open there, right? Okay.
Sorry, are you okay now? We're okay now. Can you hear me okay?
We're good. Yes, thank you.
The test claim was filed on time, and after some adjustment requested by Commission staff, the test claim was accepted as now posted on the Commission's website for public comment. The government relation team is working on a board letter that supports the test claim, and this will be brought to the board shortly. The letter must be submitted prior to May 29th. If the mandate is approved and funds allocated, we will be able to file reimbursement for costs associated with the independent performance office from fiscal 19-20. There is still work for Mary's office to do, including developing and getting approved the parameters and guidelines and then filing the claim for reimbursement. But a lot of work has been completed in a short time frame, and we are hopeful. And today, I want to, on your behalf, and thank our independent performance auditor, Mary Kay, for a job well done. Another good news is in Sacramento, the legislators are back. Our bill on CEQA streamlining for the Central Mobility Hub, sponsored by Assemblymember Todd Gloria and co-authored by President Pro Tem Atkin, is going to be heard at the committee, one of 18 bills, which is amazing, given the number of bills that we have. At this time, I want to thank our government relation team who did an amazing job, and thank Assemblymember Gloria and others who do that. Chairs, I'll come back and talk about item number 11 later, but that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Hassan, and apologies for the tech problems in the middle of that. Any board members with comments, please? Please unmute yourself or turn your camera on and raise your hand if you've got a comment. I'm not seeing any. Tessa, do we have any public comment? Tessa?
We do not have public comment on item 4.
Thank you very much. We will move on to consent. If there are no board questions or comments on these items, I would entertain a motion and a second for items 1 and items 5 through 9. Mr. Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On item 5, I just had a couple of comments, and I'll go ahead and move, making a motion to approve the consent calendar. I just wanted to, on item 5, this is the military multimodal access strategy that the military put out. I just want to make note that of their projects, the most of them, 9 of them, are freeway and highway projects. They have 7 active transportation projects. The next category is local streets and roads. They also have rail, transit, and micro mobility projects. I just wanted to point out in the North region, one of their first project that they list is the SR-78. The military is requesting add 2 managed lanes, existing 6 freeway lanes, and 2 managed lanes to create an alternative freeway option to increase the vehicle throughput. I do notice that in the staff report, the staff is saying that the top priority projects and programs identified through the multimodal access strategy will be considered during the development of the 2021 regional plan. I just wanted to emphasize that and make everyone aware that with the military and their input on item 5. So I have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Supervisor. Councilmember Moreno. You'll need to unmute yourself. Need to click on your move on button so we can hear you.
Got you. I was muted by the organizer. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. I'd also like to make comments on item 5 on the consent agenda. Once again, the military multimodal access strategy. First of all, thank you so much for this report. I'm very happy to see some important projects listed as key projects. Specifically, the Vestas Fleet Bridge and the Harbor Drive are critical to restore the significant mobility issues surrounding the Naval Base San Diego in Barrio Logan. I'm pleased to see them highlighted in this report. Also important are 2 critical grade separation projects along the Blue Line at 32nd Street and at 28th Street. Currently, these blue lines at grade crossings create major bottlenecks of both vehicles and pedestrians that negatively affect our Navy personnel, shipyard employees, and the community. I would encourage the San Diego Regional Military Working Group to prioritize blue line grade separations at 32nd Street and 28th Street. I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment? Seeing no further comment, we have a motion from Supervisor Desmond, a second from Councilmember Moreno. I will call on the clerk for the roll call vote, please.
Thank you. City of Carlsbad, Councilmember Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
City of Chula Vista, Mayor Salas.
Aye.
City of Coronado, Mayor Bailey.
Bailey, yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
City of Del Mar, Mayor Haviland.
Haviland, yes.
City of El Cajon is absent. City of Encinitas, Vice Chair Blakespear.
Yes.
City of Escondido, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
City of Imperial Beach, Mayor Dedina. Mayor Dedina. Okay, thank you. And City of La Mesa, Councilmember Baber.
Yes.
City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Vasquez.
Aye.
City of National City, Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
City of Oceanside, Deputy Mayor Feller.
Aye.
City of Poway, Chair Voss.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno.
Yes.
City of San Marcos, Mayor Jones.
You're muted, Rebecca.
I muted myself. Oh, Jones, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mayor of Santee, City of Santee, Mayor Minto.
Minto, yes.
City of Solana Beach, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
City of Vista, Mayor Ritter.
Ritter, yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes unanimously with City of El Cajon absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10, the fiscal year 2021 revised transit and transportation development. Yes,
I'm
Tessa.
sorry, excuse me, I just wanted to confirm there's no public comment on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I knew that intuitively. Moving on to item 10, fiscal year 2021 revised transit and transportation development act program revenues. Ray Major, welcome, Ray. You're muted. Stand by, Ray, we can't hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay. There you go.
Here I am. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Voss, members of the board. Hassan, can you turn the volume down there? Sorry, I'm getting feedback over here. The update that I'm going to do right now is for the next two items, both the Transnet item and the budget item. The local economy continues to suffer here in San Diego from record unemployment. About 1 in 4 residents in the region are now without a job. In some areas, we see unemployment rates as high as 1 in 3 people being unemployed. There are sectors within the economy that are particularly hard hit, like our tourism industry, which includes things like the accommodations, retail, restaurants, personal care services, like people who cut hair, do nails, gyms, etc. Those are all closed, and with the businesses closed and the stay-at-home order still in effect, our retail sales have taken a significant hit, and revenues have fallen in the last couple of months. Can you please hit the next slide? The numbers that we received in terms of dollars from the state of California for our February collections, which came in April, were consistent with what we would have anticipated pre-COVID. It came in at about $22.5 million. This graph shows retail sales in San Diego using some big data analytic methodologies that we developed in order to try to estimate what's happening with sales tax revenue. So we're looking at some sources of data, for instance, debit card sales by category. We're also looking at PEMS data from Caltrans, which is the travel data, along with information on gas prices, which affect our sales tax revenue from Gas Buddy. We're also looking at foot traffic using cell phone data to understand where people are moving to from one retail and what retail establishments they're going to. And using all of these, we can produce a model that gives us an estimate of how our retail sales are doing. Now, we won't be receiving revenue from these months from April and from March for several months from the state of California. Usually there's a 2-month lag, but we're tracking this as part of our modeling to understand what may be happening in the economy. And so you can see that pre-COVID, we were at about $1.2 billion in retail sales per week here in the county. March sales fell by about 23%. Our estimate, our forecast that we brought to you about a month ago, we were using an estimate of about 26%. So it's in line with the forecast that we produced earlier. In April, we saw a decrease of about 43%. Our model was looking at about 50% at the time. So it's a little better than what our model predicted. As you can see that April 19th and the week of April 26th are higher than the earlier part of the month, and that has to do with people starting to receive their stimulus checks and spending them. Some of the reports that we've seen indicate that within 10 days of the receipt of the stimulus check, people had spent about $600 of that money. And those people who had the least amount of money in their banks were the ones who spent the most, and that makes sense. So people with $3,000 or more in their checking account did not spend the stimulus check, but the people with less than 500 did. So with the reopening of the economy starting today, we would hope that the numbers for May and then subsequently June and July start to be better. But with that said, it depends upon how quickly we can open the economy and get back to where we think we should be, which is normal. So Arthur, could you hit the slide, please? The next two items that you will be hearing both depend upon this forecast. And so the forecast that we have here is an update of the one that we brought you a month ago. These are the independent national forecasts apply, and what we're doing is we're validating our forecast compared to them. Our forecast is looking at the possibility, or now the probability, of a moderate recession coming out of this COVID-19 crisis. A 3-month disruption, so that would be a disruption that starts ending about June 15th, and a long V recovery, which means that we would not recover fully back to pre-COVID levels until fiscal year 23, which is about in the middle of calendar year 22. Next slide, please. And this just shows you what these different national firms are showing in terms of forecasts. What the team did was to take what they have forecast for the rest of 2020 and then apply those to San Diego. And what you can see is that we are relatively conservative with these forecasts. Most of them are a little more optimistic than what we've been using for budgeting purposes. Our forecast came in at 13.2%. Andre uses 13.5%. So an even more conservative estimate when doing his budget. The only two forecasts that have a larger decrease than what we're using is the Congressional Budget Office, which is at 14%, and Deloitte, which has the most pessimistic of the forecasts. One of the questions that came up from Councilmember Zito was whether or not we were going to be able, or what the impact was, or did we take into account small businesses' ability to defer their sales tax payments of up to $50,000 for 12 months. That's not included in our forecast because we're forecasting revenues that are owed to us. We do not know what the state of California is going to do yet. We have no indication from them in terms of whether or not they would be giving us an estimate of what we should be receiving, or if they will not be giving us that revenue and then deferring it until next year. As soon as we have more direction on that, we'll come back with those answers for the board. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ariana. If there are no questions, I'll hand it over to Ariana to present the rest of the item. Thank you.
Jim, did you have a question, Supervisor Desmond?
Right. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ray. Good morning, Terva.
Ariana, would you hold for a minute, please? Supervisor
Yes.
Desmond had a question for Ray.
Ray,
Yes.
Ray, I appreciate all the charts and everything, and kind of telling us where we are, and your data that you've been putting out on unemployment and everything that the nation's been using. You've been doing a great job. You look confused. Can you hear me?
Oh, because I now have my speaker on, so now I can hear you. I could only hear you from another computer far away. So I've got you now. So please, if you could repeat the question.
I'm thanking you, first of all. But I guess what I'm kind of wondering is, how does this tie into, and our next item's on the budget, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do these new curves and new waves, how do they, and we don't have to answer me today, but can we kind of get an insight in the near future of how this is going to affect what we've got planned, and if it is or it isn't going to affect? And that's kind of where I'm curious to hear about, moving forward with the regional plan. What can we expect, and what can we afford? So I'm kind of curious how this is all going to play out and intermingle with what we're trying to achieve at Sandag.
Right, and so we can bring that back as an item. Right now, we're looking at about an $80 million loss in sales tax revenue over the course of this particular COVID crisis. And so that's what our long-term forecast is showing. And I think that as Ariana presents her items, she might be able to cover some of those. If not, we can bring it back as a full item.
Let's go to Ariana.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Good morning, Chair Voss and Sandag members, Sandag board members. Today we're seeking your approval of the proposed revised Transnet and Transportation Development Act, or TDA, revenue estimates for fiscal year 21. Every February, staff brings the Transnet, TDA, and Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, revenue estimates to the Transportation Committee and Board of Directors for consideration. The Transportation Committee and the board reviewed and approved the fiscal year 21 estimates at their respective meetings in February. The transit operators in the San Diego region received these revenues to support operations of projects. And Sandag's role is to apportion the funds to support these planning and budget development efforts. Fiscal year 21 Transnet revenues, which were approved by the board.
Let me have you pause. Ariana,
Yes.
let me have you pause. Somebody's microphone isn't muted. It makes it hard to hear the speaker. If you could be sure your microphone is muted. Thank you. Go ahead, Ariana.
Yes. Fiscal year 21 Transnet revenues, which were approved by the board in February, were estimated at $328 million. And these are now estimated to be $285 million. And as Ray mentioned, this reflects a 13% decrease or $43 million reduction in Transnet funds for fiscal year 21. TDA revenues are estimated to decline by about 18.7 million over the same period for an overall reduction of about 62 million in fiscal year 21 compared with our initial board approved forecast from February. The impact to the transit operator budgets reflects about half of that amount, or about 27.5 million. And this report also does not include any changes to the February board approved FTA amounts, since those are based on actual apportionment received for federal fiscal year 20 and are therefore those remain unchanged since your February approval. And things have changed a lot since we were considering these estimates only 60 days ago. Due to continuing economic variability, we are providing revised estimates for fiscal year 21 only at this time. Updates to both the fiscal year 21 and future year estimates would be brought for Transportation Committee and board consideration as necessary. The next item on your agenda, as was referenced earlier, is your revised fiscal year 21 Sandag program budget, and it incorporates the revised revenue estimates being presented for your approval today. And the recommendation for you today is that the Board of Directors is asked to approve the submittal of federal I'm looking at the slide that's up on the screen. That is not the correct recommendation. But the recommendation for you today,
there we go.
There you go. The Board of Directors, yes, the Board of Directors is asked to approve the revised fiscal year 21 estimates and apportionments for Transportation Development Act and Transnet funds. And Ray, Stephanie, and I are available to help answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ariana. Board members, comments, questions? Turn your camera on and wave if you have a comment or a question. Anybody? Tessa, do we have any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments on item 10.
Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you.
Moreno. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can. Yes, we hear you. Let's go to Supervisor. Councilmember.
I'll move to approve item 10.
Thank you, Jim. Councilmember Moreno, we'll try again.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Good.
Okay.
We hear you.
Thank you for the presentation. As I understand it, you're estimating that there's going to be about a 12% reduction in Transportation Development Act funding. The TDA is comprised of two funds: the Local Transportation Fund, funded by a 1/4 cent statewide sales tax, and the State Transit Assistance Funds, which is an allocation by the legislature and was effectively doubled by SB1 gas tax. Fraser Schilling with the UC Davis Road Ecology Center has released an estimate that SB1 fuel tax revenue would fall by 75% as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. Given this, do you think that the estimate 12% reduction in TDA funding is optimistic?
I think, because TDA and Transnet are both, sales tax-based revenues, typically TDA follows Transnet as well, so they're very similar, but there are different rules in how the tax is levied and how it's calculated. But at this time, this is the reduction that we are proposing or estimating rather. But as mentioned previously, the idea is to come back, I think, on a quarterly basis with your budget, and to the extent that that means bringing back your revenue estimates on a more frequent basis, then we would be prepared to come back to revise those as necessary.
Okay.
If I may, Chair Vaz, to just Council Member Moreno's question, and you've seen in Ray's economic forecast, the 13% is now based on what we know today. For example, the gas tax receipt is probably 65% down. But the reason we wanted to come back every quarter, because due to COVID-19, this number could change very quickly. But for now, I think it's safe to assume a 13% based on everything we know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Sotelo-Solis, did you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I was going to second the motion. And again, I appreciate the fact that the last comment that the executive director just made about bringing items back quarterly. So I will second the motion and call the roll call vote for you.
Thanks for taking over my job, Alejandra. What little I get to do. Any other comments or questions, please? We have a motion from Supervisor Desmond, a second from Mayor Sotelo-Solis. Tessa, roll call vote, please.
City of Carlsbad, Councilmember Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
City of Chula Vista, Mayor Salas.
Salas, aye.
City of Coronado, Mayor Bailey.
Bailey, yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor Desmond.
Desmond, aye.
City of Del Mar, Mayor Haviland.
Haviland, yes.
City of El Cajon is absent. City of Encinitas, Vice Chair Blakespear.
Blakespear, yes.
City of Escondido, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
City of Imperial Beach, Mayor Dedina.
Medina, yes.
City of La Mesa, Councilmember Baber.
Baber, yes.
City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Vasquez.
Mayor Vasquez, aye.
City of National City, Mayor Sotelo-Solis.
Sotelo-Solis, aye.
City of Oceanside, Deputy Mayor Feller.
Feller, yes.
City of Poway, Chair Voss.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno.
Yes.
City of San Marcos, Mayor Jones.
Jones, yes.
City of Santee, Mayor Minto.
Minto, yes.
City of Solana Beach, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
City of Vista, Mayor Ritter.
Ritter, yes.
That concludes the roll call vote. Item 10 passes unanimously with one member agency absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, the revised draft fiscal year 2021 Sandag program budget. Hassan, would you lead this off, please? Great yellow shirt, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really do like your gavel. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning again, board members. As many of you know, personally, dealing with the economic fallout from the pandemic is a solemn discussion in municipal hallways. It's no different here. Also, unlike municipalities, Sandag has 104 different funding sources. You just heard from Ray and Ariana on the revised number for Transnet and TDA funding. Like I said before, at this time, that's the assumptions we're going with, which is a 13% reduction. It's obvious that things have changed a lot since we were considering the estimate only 60 days ago. Now you will hear from Ray and Andre on our revised fiscal year 2021 budget. Our initial draft budget was prepared at the end of February. Pre-COVID-19 budget was a total of $1.32 billion. Our revised budget that you're going to see today is a total of $1.15 billion, or a reduction of $167 million from the initial draft. That $167 million reduction is based on the assumption of 13% reduction of our sales tax. This is what you're going to see is a painful budget. At least it's painful for me. We are reducing staff by 10%, 40 some position. We will have no merit or performance increases for a savings of about $2 million. Most of the savings in the budget is due to pushing 10% of cash flow fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 2022. I know some of you seen the report and might think, wait a minute, is this project being cut? Staff don't have authority to cut budgets for a project, but we did deploy the cash flow mechanisms to get the reduction, meaning that for now, we think that the expenditure being adjusted in 2021, and this is why coming to you quarterly is important. If COVID-19 impact is going to be further or worse than what you see right now, at one point, and this is back to Supervisor Jim Desmond's point, at one point, this board have to take action about cutting budgets for a project, eliminating some project altogether. It's still fluid. We would know more later, the full impact and whether the board have to make these decisions. But for now, we did the cash flow, moved some funding from the year 2021 to get you a balanced budget. Given that we have these diverse funding sources, 104 different sources, it is much easier to do it for Sandag than probably many of the cities and the county. So half of the funding comes from state and federal agencies. And we did contact both the state and federal governments, and they assured us that our funding are allocated and has not been changed. So today we're presenting to you a budget that, as I said earlier, painful, based on a 13% reduction. We took all measures to keep us moving the project forward. There have been some cash flow adjustment for many of the projects, almost all the projects, to get the budget balanced with $167 million reduction in the total budget. And with that, I'd like to ask Ray and Andre to go through highlights, and then after that, the team and I are ready to answer your questions. So Andre.
Andre, we can't hear you directly.
Good. You want to come from here, Andre?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. So before presenting the budget, I thought it may be helpful to go through the timeline of the events that have taken place to date in development of the revised draft 20 program budget. It's been a little bit of an adventure, including this morning, I guess. I think also why I want to hit on why it is important that SANDAG approve a final budget before the start of the new fiscal year, as opposed to many of our member agencies and even the state of California was postponing the adoption of their budgets till next fiscal year. So at its February 14th, 2020 meeting, we presented the process of developing the fiscal year 21 program budget to the executive committee, and we gave general highlights, including the review of the funding sources. Our next step was to present the executive committee with our draft 21 program budget on March 8th at our annual retreat, which was to be held at the VS Resort. However, the retreat was canceled as a precaution to the COVID-19 virus, which had started spreading. At March 27th meeting, the board of directors was scheduled to review the draft 21 budget. However, due to the crisis, the board instead directed staff to return with an updated funding assumption based on potential impacts of the current pandemic. So at the April 10th meeting, Ray ran through a number of our scenarios of what impacts COVID-19 may have on our economy and the potential financial outcomes. And although the situation remains very fluid and there are still many unknowns, we used the most likely scenario Ray presented and reduced our revenue accordingly in our revised draft budget. At that meeting, the board also approved a change in our bylaws to allow more flexibility in the timing of presenting a draft budget. However, what was not changed in the bylaws is the fact that we need to have a balanced final budget by June 30th of each year, so we can abide by some of the federal and state mandates that we have as a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO. So today we'll be looking for an approval of the draft budget, and we'll be coming back to the board next month on June 12th, seeking a review and adoption of the final budget. In addition, as has been previously mentioned, we will propose to come back to the board on a quarterly basis in fiscal year 2021 as more information is gathered and the budget is amended as necessary. So as Hassan mentioned earlier, our budget at the end of February was a total of $1.32 billion. At that timing, our funding status was very robust, considering that we had a very strong economy with high consumer confidence, unemployment was at all-time lows, and the stock market kept notching in record highs. Unfortunately, today, just a few months later, we are in a very different environment because of the current pandemic. And so our revised draft budget is a total of $1.15 billion, or a reduction of $167 million from the initial draft. Fortunately, as Hassan mentioned, we have over 100 funding sources that are expected to provide revenue for the approximately 350 OWP, operations and capital projects that are currently in the 21 revised draft budget. Our local sources of revenue, such as transit and TDA, fund about half our budget, and this is where we see most of the reduced revenues. The other half of the funding comes from state and federal sources, and staff has contacted our federal funding agencies who have confirmed that for now, there should not be any near-term revenue impacts in 21, as most of the funds have been previously appropriated. We should have a better sense of state funding for next year once the governor releases his May revise. However, we did get a preview yesterday when the California Department of Finance released a report projecting a $53.4 billion deficit over the next year based on this crisis. So the state is planning to pass a workload budget for fiscal year 21 in June, essentially carrying over current spending levels to keep agencies working, but is planning to take up the budget again in August, which is when we most likely will see additional cuts. At the federal level, we are pleased to see that infrastructure continues to be part of the conversation. Given the fact that Congress has really doled out nearly $3 trillion in relief funding, there may be less of an appetite to have a large standalone infrastructure package, as has been previously discussed. As such, SANDAG is pushing for a stable, multi-year and multimodal transportation authorization bill to be part of any infrastructure package. The current bill, the FAST Act, is set to expire at the end of September. By focusing on authorization rather than a one-time stimulus, we can ensure a long-term sustainable funding for our region. Our legislative team is working with our federal partners to position the region's priority projects and streamline existing processes as part of these conversations. So at the executive committee meeting that we had on February 28th, there was a special agenda to discuss the performance objectives of the executive director. There was some discussion about what the specific responsibilities are for the agency as an MPO for the region. I wanted to point out that included in the budget in Appendix E, which is 526 of your tablet, is a list of SANDAG's overall authority, responsibilities, and federal and state local mandates. This slide shows just a handful of those over 30 items that are listed in the appendix. Now, these responsibilities and mandates, along with board direction, help us develop the strategic initiatives and priority projects that will be the focus of the work in the upcoming year. These are listed in attachment 1, beginning on page 3 of your tablets. So the fiscal year 21 budget has many work efforts designed to support the agency's strategic initiatives. The administration budget includes funds to implement the organizational effectiveness actions. The modernization of the agency's support systems and technology is included in both the administration and capital budgets. And the overall work program includes many data and modeling projects to support the agency becoming a data-driven organization. Fiscal year 21, the agency will be focusing on 5 main projects. First, the 2021 regional plan, which will include a new transportation vision focused on meeting state and federal mandates and creating a transportation system through the implementation of 5 strategies that SANDAG refers to as the 5 big moves: complete corridors, transit leap, mobility hubs, flexible fleets, and the next operating system. This work includes the complete corridors prioritized by the board of directors last summer. Completion of the regional plan will ensure that the region remains eligible for state and federal transportation funding. Next, the Delmar Bluff stabilization. Our short-term efforts continue on the safety issues with the stabilization of the bluffs, including constructing a drainage channel on top of the bluffs, repairing concrete channels and storm drain outfalls, and fortifying existing retaining walls. We also continue working on potential long-term solutions for the corridor. Next, the Mid-Coast Trolley Project. This year we completed all of the financing for the project, and next year will be the last of the major construction. Work will continue on the viaducts in the northern section of the projects, and graining, drainage, soldier pile walls, and bridges in the southern section. Track work, station construction, and system elements will also continue along the length of the lineman. The project is on schedule to begin service in 2021. The Navy Old Town Campus revitalization with the Central Mobility Hub. This includes work with our partner agencies to implement the interagency MOU for airport connectivity that the board approved on February 14th, as well as continued work with the U.S. Navy on revitalization of the Navor site to include a Central Mobility Hub. Lastly, the Otay Mesa Port of Entry project. Along with the new connecting future toll road, SR11 is jointly undertaken by SANDAG and Caltrans in cooperation with key partner agencies on both sides of the US-Mexican border. So as part of the budget development process, managers and directors have considered the staffing resources required to successfully complete the projects identified in the revised draft budget. Existing vacant positions have been reclassified and repurposed throughout the year to support the new organizational design and commitment to improve level of agency performance. As a cost-cutting measure, the number of full-time positions has been reduced by 10% for fiscal year 2021, saving $5.2 million. This has been achieved through the elimination of 40 currently vacant positions. The reduction in workforce is in anticipation of future workload demands, which are expected to decrease due to the combination of efficiency gaining actions. In addition, the compensation adjustment pool for fiscal year 21 has been eliminated, saving $1.9 million. and there are no changes to existing salary ranges for staff positions. Each of the programs within the SANDAG budget have a contingency reserve. All SANDAG contingency reserves are summarized in Chapter 12 of the budget. The proposed budget includes a deposit to replenish the OWP contingency reserve, bringing the balance up to 13% of the annual budget. This will put us above the minimum target of 10% as defined by Board Policy 30. SANDAG established an IRC Section 115 tax-exempt irrevocable trust in fiscal year 2017 as a means of saving for future pension costs. An additional $1 million contribution to the trust is recommended as part of the 21 annual program budget. Staff will give an update on the actuarial analysis with the final program budget that we bring back to you next month. So on June 12th, the board is scheduled to review the proposed final program budget, which will include comments received from the funding agencies, member agencies, and the public. And as mentioned earlier, staff will come back to the board on a quarterly basis with potential budget amendments as necessary. And so today, the board of directors is asked to approve the final revised 2021 program budget and authorize distribution of the document to member agencies and other interested parties for review. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair. I'll hand it back to you to see if there are any questions that we may be able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Appreciate your team's work. Board members, I'm certain there are comments and questions. And I'm hearing it echoing somewhere. Mayor Jones, did you have a comment or question?
Actually, are we done or going to have more comments by staff?
Rebecca, you were breaking up there. Can you pose your question again?
Oh, here, let me put my headphones on. I think it works a little bit better. Sorry. My apologies. So I was asking if staff had any further presentation or if they're finished.
No,
they're finished.
Okay, so I am looking at page 7.2 of the administration and board budgets. The administrative salaries and benefits are up 12.2%. And okay, so let me just make it very clear, and everyone can definitely, I believe, agree with me. We are facing some very difficult times with COVID-19. In San Marcos specifically, we have closed our office every single Friday. We have laid off all of our part-time employees. So we are moving forward with a tightening of our belt. And this 12.2% change in an increase in salaries doesn't make sense to me, because I'm afraid we need to keep everyone employed at SANDAG, and having any increase doesn't make any sense to me. So I think having, you know, when so many people in our county are unemployed, I think the number is now right around 26%. I don't know how this can be justified. I'm very uncomfortable with it. And as I have mentioned in the past, I had asked that our independent auditor do a full comprehensive comparison of full compensation, and that being salaries plus all of the benefits that would be included in that as well. So looking at, you know, all of this, I just, oh, I have one more note. Sorry, I have notes everywhere. It's hard to find that.
Mayor Jones, if I just may.
Yes.
The 12% is a decrease, not an increase.
It says the 219 actuals are 7,538,194. Then the estimate is 8,566,432, and then the fiscal year 21 is 9,607,659. I'm sorry, am I reading that wrong somehow?
Yeah,
it says
yeah,
an increase of 12.2%.
We'll put the screen up. It's a 12% decrease, Mayor. Just
Let Andre finish.
And I'll let Andre just make sure that. Andre, put the screen up. We'll put the screen up, Mayor Jones, the one you're referring to.
Okay.
There it is.
So, Mayor Jones, what we're showing is that our initial draft budget showed a $58.7 million salary and benefits budget. It's been reduced down to $51.6 million. And so the change right now is a $7 million reduction. I would say $5 million of that is from a reduction of the 40 personnel that have been taken out of the budget. And then initially during the draft budget, we had a 4% merit, but that was in February when things were looking good with our budget. So we also removed that. So in essence, we have a 12% reduction from the initial draft that we presented. And this revised draft is a $7 million, 12% reduction.
Well, okay, so I'm going to have to look back because maybe you stay tuned. I'm going to have to sift through the other things because I'm seeing something completely different. So let me look. How about I just come back? Okay, sorry.
Supervisor Desmond.
I'm going to leave that screen up there. That's from the difference from the proposed budget in April versus the proposed budget today. The proposed budget in April had a 24% increase to salaries. This is showing a 12%. You took half of that and kept a 12% increase. On page 7.2 of the administrative budget in the proposed draft, it is still a 12% increase to salaries to administrative salaries and benefits. What you're showing there is not a true, that's just in the draft that you gave us that had a 24% raise. You lowered it by 12, there's still a 12% raise. So can you pull up page 7.2?
Pull up 7.2.
That's the one I had.
Top or the second line here on 7.2 is still pretty small. The second line here, and this is part of the draft budget, not this thing that you showed earlier was not part of the draft budget. That was just the analysis between the two. Still shows a 12.2% increase for administrative salaries and benefits. I cannot support. So what you showed was a 24. You went from 24% increase to a 12% increase, which is still unacceptable.
Andre, can you address that?
Yeah, if I may, Supervisor, that was the number from the fiscal year 2020 estimated actual. What the document that I showed you earlier was the initial draft budget that I had in April. And so that was the 2020 number. And so we went up to that $58 million figure, but now we're down to 51. So
we're looking at the administrative salary line only, not the entire budget, the administrative salary line. It shows a 12.2, it's right in front of you. It shows a 12.2% increase in administrative salaries and benefits. 58 million is your entire budget. This is salaries and benefits. It shows a 12.2% increase. Doesn't have a minus sign in front of it. Your numbers. So that being left in there is unacceptable. We should not be giving any government should not be taking any raises at this time with 26%, 26.8% according to Sandag unemployment. So that line needs to be zero, in my opinion. But I also have another comment here, and that is on the priority projects. We've never really taken a vote on what the priority projects are. All of a sudden, they're in front of us, and they're part of the introduction of the budget. And you know, I don't disagree with most of them, although I do see the Central Mobility Hub is in there. I thought that would be under the regional plan. And particularly, we haven't even seen the vision yet an item here, the Central Mobility Hub is in here already. And so I'm okay with that, but this is the first time we're really kind of voting on what the priority projects are. And one of the things that is part of the regional plan, it mentions, the complete corridors, the transit leap, the mobility hubs, the flexible fleets. One of the things that's always left out in the complete corridors is a motion that the board did on July 12th of last year at the Sand Egg board meeting. It's a motion by Mayor Faulkner and a second by Mayor Salas that the board of directors directed staff to continue public outreach and develop a regional plan with the following priorities: conformance to the all applicable federal and state laws, including state greenhouse gas targets, provides realistic, transparent revenue assumptions, utilizes the 5 big moves, and a complete corridor model, including highway and transit improvements, and prioritizes corridors previously scheduled for investment, such as State Routes 78, 52, 67, 94, and 125. I would like to have on priority projects where it shows the 2021 regional plan, where it says and explains complete corridors. It's on page 1-6 in the overview of the draft plan, to add a sentence at the end of the paragraph for complete corridors, and prioritizes corridors previously scheduled for investment, such as State Route 78, 52, 67, and 94, 125, as was a motion that was approved at our board meeting in July of last year. So I'll make a motion just to get us started off here that the motion that includes that sentence on the corridors and takes that to administrative salaries and benefits down to zero. There should be no increase in budget in any salaries at all, even the administrative salaries moving forward. So with those two, so it should go down to 0 then for any percentage change on the salaries, and then that sentence on the complete corridors. I'll make that a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond.
I'll second that.
Member comments? That sounded like Mayor Jones.
Mayor Jones, yes.
Thank you. Further comments and questions from board members, please. Remember, you'll need to turn your camera on and unmute yourself if you're self-muted. Do we have other board member comments, questions? There we go. Councilmember Moreno.
Yes, well, first and foremost, thank you for the presentation. And also thank you to staff for being responsive to the concerns of the board of reevaluating the assumption behind the budget. I think the end result is much more realistic and a transparent budget. And I'm also pleased to see that we intend to continue to make progress in critical cross-border projects, such as the Mesa East Port of Entry and State Route 11. I look forward to continuing to work with staff on these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The question that I have for the maker of the motion, again, that 12%, I would really want to get clarification as to what the maker of the motion, the second, was pushing and what amendment they were looking at. So if we could get clarification, Mr. Chair, from the maker, I'd appreciate that.
Supervisor Desmond, can you come back on screen here?
Hey, Mayor.
There we go.
I don't know if you got the budget in front of you, page 7-2. Second
Can
line.
you put that slide back up, please, Hassan?
Are you
Go ahead,
giving me
Jeff.
You back
Supervisor Desmond.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, if you look at line 2, I can barely see it on mine. It's pretty small. It shows there's a column there, or line 2 says administrative salaries and benefits, and then it says including included in total agency salaries and benefits as shown above. They have the total as shown above of 51 million, a decrease in overall of a reduction overall of the salaries and benefits from in the 2.6% overall decrease in salaries and benefits. However, there's an increase of, which is great, the decrease, but there's an increase of 12.2% in the next line to administrative salary and benefits. So overall, they were able to make some cuts, but they do still have, and if you look at the 2020, actually, it's like whatever, the second is fiscal year 2019, the second column or third column, I guess, the middle column. Says estimated 2020 actual estimates is $8.56 million. And then in the 2021 budget, they want $9.6 million. I think we should just keep salaries and benefits for 2020, particularly where we are at the COVID virus. When this thing gets over, maybe take another look. But there should be no administrative salary increases. So that is changing that line to have zero change.
Hello, this is Sandy Craigs. I do the budget analyst.
Wait, I have no idea who is speaking right now.
Sandy Craig, I'm the senior budget analyst.
Okay, Sandy, go ahead.
So overall, the budget, agency salaries went down, as Desmond was saying, but the admin salaries is increasing, and that's just an allocation of the way the hours are done this year. So that means less hours are posted to capital projects and OWP and operations projects, and more are posted to admin and salaries.
So if I may add to that, let me make it very clear, Supervisor Desmond, there is no increase whatsoever in salaries and benefits this year. And there is a decrease overall, but this is how the hours are allocated. So I just be happy to clarify it some more, but there is zero performance, salary, or merit increases for this budget.
So really quick, just to clarify, if I could just that budget though, all of them are allocated to specific projects. That increase, they're allocated to.
Correct.
Okay, I need to ask each of you if you just raise your hand when you want to speak so that I can keep a little bit of control here. I know Alejandro, you were taking over before, but Supervisor Desmond.
I agree. The overall salaries and benefits have decreased by 2.6%. That's in the line above. And so you must have made some other decreases in other areas. You did in administrative staffing and outside temporary services. You made a 31% decrease there. So you've had some decreases, but you're raising up. I mean, this is not a zero, Hassan. This is a 12.2 positive increase in the line that says administrative salaries and benefits. I applaud you for cutting. I applaud you for reducing, but we shouldn't be shifting these dollars to anyone else to get an increase in salary or benefits.
Nobody is, if I may.
Why 12.2% there?
Okay, and Sandy tried just to explain that this is an allocation of hours to capital project, not I mean, let me make sure very clear. I'm looking you all in the eye and telling you there is zero salary adjustment for staff in 2021 or performance merits, any of that. In addition to that, there is the cut. Now, we'll be happy to explain. I see why would you feel that way if you see line 2 in this table, but I would like Sandy to come back with an explanation of how the allocation of hour resulted in that. Let me repeat, there is no performance pay increases or merit increases for this year, which resulted in like 1.7 million and 1.9 million salaries. I can absolutely relate to what you're talking about, but that is not an increase, that's an allocation of hours. And Sandy, if you're still there, please explain a little bit more what you mean by the allocating the hour to the capital program.
Okay, thank you. So some of the increase is due to the increase in the performance auditors' new positions. So those were approved in FY20, And so since they were approved mid-year, only partial of their salaries are included in the FY20 estimate, but their entire salary would be included in the FY21 budget.
Supervisor Desmond.
We have Mary Kay.
I'm sorry?
Could Mary Kay talk?
Mary Kay, are you online?
Hi, yes, I'm here, but I can look at this, but I have not looked at the budget. I can see where they're saying that there is, in fact, just looking at the page that's up right now, there is, in fact, a 12.2% increase in admin salaries and benefits with an overall decrease of 2.6. So I'm looking at like a 14.8% overall decrease at the top part, but the bottom part you got an increase. So you have a net effect of 2.6% decrease in the overall salaries and benefits. But because I haven't looked at the detail, I really can't respond to the accuracy or the legitimacy either way.
Chair Vass, I just want to say, I'm gonna repeat myself just for the record. There will be no one in the agency, from the first employee all the way to me. There will be no increases, period, in the discussion in 2021.
Well, this is not, you don't just end the discussion. This is a board meeting.
No, I didn't end the discussion, sir. I'm saying, I'm gonna repeat it because it's important. You keep saying you're reducing somewhere and giving increases. There is no performance or merit increases, period. That's to me. You can discuss it as long as you want. I'm just
okay.
Well, then you would be okay if this was a 0 in that column that I'm asking for.
But how could it be 0, sir, when we're adding, say, for example, 3 or 4 positions to the independent auditor that we have last year? It couldn't be 0. I agree with you that the way it looks at the table is probably not the right way, but it is not performance increases for anybody, period.
Okay. Let me tell you,
okay.
It's a $1.1 million increase. 3 people are going to be a $1.1 million increase.
Hey, this is Andy Craig. I can do an analysis for what those positions are, and we can come back and see what the difference is between each of our different programs. Right. And then we can compare where the salary increases are.
Okay, this is Mary again. I'm sorry. Steve, can I quickly say something? Because I'm so desperate for resources, I do have to clarify something. My whole total IPA as of fiscal year 20 and even in 21 is less than 1 million. It's 700 and something thousand. So it would not be the IPA, and I would ask for that evidence.
Correct. It will not be your office, Mary, for sure.
Let me go. A couple other people wishing to speak. Let's go to Mayor Blakespear, then we'll take Mayor Salas.
Okay, thank you. I think it's clear that this document does show that from 2019, it's 7.5 million. It goes to 8.5 million, then it goes to 9.6 million in that line item. And so for us to be provided the backup documentation that shows what is happening with that line item, despite the fact that it's being made up in a different line item, that documentation, I think, is something we should all see, and it would allow us to make a decision about swapping staff members. If we need more auditors and we need less of something else, the board could make that decision. But without that, I don't think that, to me, it seems premature to direct the staff to come back with that being 0. I'd like to just be provided with that information right away so that we could then be able to discuss it. And then I'll just say on the second part of the supervisor's motion, I feel comfortable adding in a sentence that reflects board direction. The board direction, as the supervisor said, was to include those corridors. So that language, for that to be showing up in our documents, makes sense based on previous board direction. So that would be my 2 comments on the 2 parts of the supervisor's motion. I think the technology is making it somewhat hard sometimes when things are cutting out, but but I did not find the discussion of it being the allocation of hours and then it's the performance auditor, all of that. I would really like to get the story straight on that because those things put together just don't make sense to me. So I'm unable to vote yes on the supervisor's motion before we are provided that documentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear. Mayor Salas.
Thank you. So the way that I looked at that line item in the budget was not an increase in salaries, but what the actual cost of actually administrating and the hours that are going to be put in for the work involved in
Correct.
different projects, which is an increase because we're doing more actions. Did I misunderstand that in any way? And maybe
No, that's exactly correct. That's exactly correct.
Answer that question.
Yes, that's correct. Your understanding is correct.
To answer the question, because it seems that there's how can I say this? There seems to be not a trust in what you're saying, but I want Andre to answer the question.
Yeah.
Andre.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Salas. The chart that's up on the board right now shows our entire budget of the $1.15 billion. And if you can see in the asterisks below, it says included in the annual funding of the capital program administrative budget of $17.5 million allocated to OWP, regional operations and capital projects. And the one new budget that we added this year was for the OIPA office. And so that was for the 780,000, so or 730,000 or 0.73 million. So you can see that the administrative portion of the budget went up by 0.73 and our overall administrative line item went up by about $1 million. So there's some reallocations that happen between staff members and what is actually charged out to projects. But as Hassan said, we do not overall have an increase. That line item may have increased. That basically meant that other programs such as the capital, Transnet, and operations went down. So overall, although you may see an increase of 12%, it's because the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor, a couple other people may have been put in there, but that means that it came out from somewhere else. And that's something that we can definitely provide a detailed for you to see, that you'll ultimately be able to see that there was no increases in staff or salary increases this year.
Thank you, Andre. Mary, anything else, Mary?
That's it.
Thank you. Mayor Jones, did you have another comment or question?
Yes, I did. So I'm very uncomfortable with this because I think if I approve any, oh, someone told me my camera's upside down the other day. I think maybe I did it the same way. Is that fixed? I don't know. The other day, I just remembered that I did that the other day. I don't know if it's right. Anyway, I'm just looking at what message I would be sending to my staff, because my staff, and I'm sure most cities are in the same position as I am, we're looking at how can we buckle down, and I still only see a 12.2% increase. I understand take from here, give there. The bottom line is it is a 12.2% increase, and I'm unsure about the whole administration part, because administration is not project based. I understand with consultants it is project based, but the administration part does not make sense to me still. So I don't really have an answer. All I know is that I'm extremely uncomfortable with any increase. And I think Sandag's staff does a great job. However, what message am I sending as an elected leader when I'm telling everyone we've got to buckle down, we've got to make sure we're saving every penny possible, and then we have a 12.2% increase in staff? That's what it shows. There is an increase, period, end of story. And Supervisor Desmond said the same thing. We're looking at an increase, and I cannot justify that in my mind, period.
Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you. It's just very confusing because I'm hearing three different things. We heard, I guess, the budget person here not Andre, but the lady who spoke earlier, she said it was a movement of hours. And then I heard Hassan agree with Mayor Salas, it's just an increase in cost. And then Andre says, well, yes, there is an overall decrease, but this line increased, but there's been decreases elsewhere. It's very confusing. My motion still stands as far as, we should not have, and if Hassan, you're saying absolutely there's no increases, then this administrative salary and benefits line should show 0 increases. And I get it, overall, you're doing fine with it, but so the data that I was given does not match the words that I'm hearing. So I think we should leave, instead of the motion being it goes to 0, as far as I'll leave the part of the motion where we add the sentence about the 78, the 52, the 67, the 95, 124, but we should leave the salaries and benefits in 2021 the same as 2020.
So Supervisor, just to be very clear, we cannot say that. Let me tell you again, if I'm making $50,000 this year, I will be making $50,000 by the end of the 21 fiscal budget. That's what I mean, 0. For anybody in the agency, every single employee, including myself.
Well, I hear that.
Okay, now let's move to making the budget the same. We have added some positions to match the need, including the independent, the performance independent auditor's position. So you cannot have it to be the same unless you start eliminating programs. And that's what we mean by the hours. But I am telling you right now, yes, sir. Go ahead, Supervisor.
I get it. They added some people, but we're also, hopefully, we're going to get that money refunded by the state. But
hopefully, yeah.
Okay. Let me throw out another possibility here. We've called an additional meeting for next week. I wonder if it would make sense to continue this item to allow time to have input from Mary Kay, just so we know apples and oranges. I'm hearing confusion here. I wonder if it would make sense to continue this item, but Mr. Desmond, I'm getting a thumbs up from Vice Chair Blakespear. I would like to have that additional clarity. Councilmember Moreno.
There we go. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to clarify, this budget decreases total salary and benefits by 2.6%. Administrative is only part of total salaries, as the table indicates. I think this motion is based on a misunderstanding, and I am not going to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have other board members with comments or questions? Absent that, I would make a substitute motion to continue this item for a week to get additional input from Mary Kay, so we have complete clarity on this. I think that's the wise way to go. So there's a substitute motion. Mayor Sotelo Solis.
I second your motion. That's what that was.
Thank
I second your motion to continue the item in order to have a detailed report as to what that line item is. And then if it's not clear next week, I think there's a valid point that Supervisor Desmond has made. And I think from there, we'll be able to really get clarification. If we just hold over the item, we can get that clarity. Thank you.
Mr. Desmond.
I guess, I don't know, are you willing to move forward with the line that that adds to the complete corridors that prioritizes those previously scheduled for investment, such as the 78, 52, 67, 95, 124? You want to move forward with that now?
Yeah.
And then we come back on the other item?
Yeah. I would be fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board member comments or questions? So the substitute motion now is to continue this for 1 week to allow Mary Kay to give us some input on it. At the same time, adding the line that's been discussed about specifically mentioning the language from July of 2019, the 94, 125, 52, 67, 78. Any further comments or questions? And I should clarify that Mayor Sotelo Solis is okay with the addition of that language that we've discussed, because she was the second on the motion. Alejandra.
Well,
Yes,
this is
I was
council.
okay with that.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank you.
yes, I was okay with that amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Moreno.
I would welcome the board to continue this item. I don't think there should be any additions or restrictions to the item. I think we should just continue it as is. I think that would be the most clear and transparent thing to do.
Thank you. Any other board member comments or questions?
I agree with Debbie.
Mr. Chair, I'm having a hard
Yes,
time finding my
Alejandra.
camera, but I just want to share that as we go forward with what Councilmember Moreno just stated, I know that Supervisor Desmond is asking for a partial acceptance of the budget, and if I will rescind my second, just so we can have everything clear for next week. Now that I'm looking at it, why push something if we can just keep going with everything next week? So I'll rescind my second. I think you're going to get a second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Chair Voss, I will second your motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Mr. Minto.
Yeah, just I think in my mind what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I'm correct, is that this is not a partial approval of the draft budget. This is merely a motion to table it until next week and staff direction to place that line item that Supervisor Desmond wanted to have in there. So if that's the correct, I agree with the transparency discussion. And so let's make that highlighted as the addition based on direction to staff. And that way there is complete transparency next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Zito. Mr. Zito, can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, hardware mute. Yeah, Mayor Minto just said what I was going to say, and I appreciate his comments. And I would actually I like the motion as it stands, because I would like to be able to see the language that's going to get added to the budget being proposed by, or being requested by Supervisor Desmond. So I think it provides us the additional benefit to be able to see what is possibly the modification is going to be when staff comes back with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Blakespear.
Just briefly to clarify, the line, it's not a line item in terms of actual funding for some specific project that's being added. It's just language that reflects the board direction that says, and includes specifically these 4 corridors. Just to clarify that that's what's being added. It's additional language. It's not an additional line item.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Salas.
No, with that clarification, I'll support it.
Okay, thank you. Any further board comment or question?
Steve, this is Mary Kay. I just want to clarify what it is. Are you just asking me to look over the numbers and verify one way or another what the impact of the increase is?
Yeah, you are our independent auditor, so we're putting you to work so we have complete confidence in the numbers.
Thanks. I'll do that.
In all your free time. Any other comments or questions from the board? Otherwise, we have a motion from the chair and a second from Mayor Jones. And with no further board, yes, Mary.
Yes. Can we restate the motion just for clarity?
The motion would be to direct staff to add the language about the 94, 125, 67, 52, 78, so that it's properly noted in the priority projects per board direction last July, and to have a report from our independent auditor, just so we have complete clarity on these numbers.
Okay, that's great, but it doesn't prejudice the actual vote next week.
No, how would it prejudice the vote? I'm not following you.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Alejandra.
And I just wanted to, again, I really appreciate you spelling it out, because what I had heard was the approval of the 94-125, all of that funding is what I had heard originally. So I appreciate you clarifying that, and I will be supporting, because it's all as a bundle and it continues that. So thank you again. I know I rescinded my second, but I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, Tessa, would you please take the roll call vote?
Thank you, Chair. I also want to comment that there are no public comments on this item.
My apologies for not checking with you on that. Thanks for making that clear.
You're welcome. City of Carlsbad, Councilmember Schumacher.
Schumacher, aye.
City of Chula Vista, Mayor Salas.
Salas, aye.
City of Coronado, Mayor Bailey.
Bailey, yes.
County of San Diego, Supervisor Desmond.
Desmond, aye.
City of Del Mar, Mayor Haviland.
Haviland, aye.
City of El Cajon is absent. City of Encinitas, Vice Chair Blakespear.
Blakespear, aye.
City of Escondido, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, aye.
City of Imperial Beach, Mayor Dedina.
Dedina, aye.
City of La Mesa, Councilmember Baber.
Baber, aye.
City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor
Vasquez.
Oh, thank you. City of National City, Mayor Sotelo Solis.
Sotelo Solis, aye.
City of Oceanside, Deputy Mayor Feller.
Feller, C.
City of Poway, Terravas.
Aye.
City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
City of San Marcos, Mayor Jones.
Yes.
City of Santee, Mayor Minto.
Minto, yes.
City of Solana Beach, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
And City of Vista, Mayor Ritter. Yeah, Mayor Ritter. We can't hear you. Can you
Smoke
text
signals,
me your
perhaps?
vote? I see your mic is on, but we don't have any audio. If you could text me your vote, we can do it that way. I'm not getting. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I will put that on the webinar. Mayor Ritter is yes.
Thank you, board.
That item passes unanimous with one member absent.
Thank you very much. That concludes that item. Do we have any continued public comment? Tessa?
There is no continued public comment.
Is that Mr. Baber with his hand up? I can't tell.
Yes. Can you hear me, Mr. Boss?
Yes, yes.
Just to clarify our last item, so our audit team doesn't collapse in crazed frustration. We're not going to do a deep dive into the underlying assumptions and pull up everybody's contracts, make sure their numbers right. We're going to answer the question presented here, which would be, is it an increase or a decrease based on these fixed numbers? We're not going to study the reasonableness number, just is it an increase or a decrease? Is that the common way of understanding what we're doing? Because we can't possibly do a deep dive in a week.
Yeah, I think that would be the common way of doing it. Make sure that between the different buckets, we're actually decreasing, we're not increasing.
Based on the numbers we were given in the budget, yes.
Yeah.
In the document that Andre presented, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Desmond, did you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, just, I mean, the line says it's an increase to administrative salaries. And if that's not really an increase, that's, I guess, what we're trying to figure out, if it is or it isn't.
Yeah.
So, and if it is, then why? And I mean, without too far of a deep dive, it sounded like some of the explanations today is adding positions. Well, that's it. Yeah. But just a little more clarification of why they're showing a positive increase is all.
Okay, correct. We can do that, but we're not going to go into the reasonableness of it, and we're not going to make them document every single position and show us that. We just don't have time to do a full dive. We're doing that as part of our audit committee. We're going to bring a whole study back on it. But this is a very top level to answer the question that was confusing everyone today.
Yes.
This is Mary Kay again, real quick, Steve. What I'm going to do is verify, well, we already know it's an increase. There's no debate there. It shows an increase in admin. What I'm going to do is determine what that increase is a result of.
Thank you.
And Chairman, if I may, that increase will not be increase in salary or benefits. That's what I said before, and that's I say again. And let me just say you took the action already, and we're going to move forward. If this were to continue to be a mistrust between the board and the staff based on a political world, this is not going to work out. I think you might want to find different kind of staff to lead this agency. I welcome Mary Kay and the independent that are looking at this, but you're pretty much telling your CFO and your CEO that what you're telling, I don't believe what you're telling me. And I believe that you have to be really careful about this, because we're running a professional agency here. I think I would rather you hire me and do this, but at the same time, I'm going to comply and move forward with your action. And I still think we should stop this, oh my God, I told you 20 times, there is no salary increase, zero, it's nothing. And whoever is going to look at it is not going to change that. The line item shows an increase of 12%, and we're going to explain what that increase is. But I think there should be a little bit more trust between the board and the staff if you want this to move forward, if you just don't. And frankly, it's very disappointing. I just wanted to share that with the board. Thank you.
I understand that, Hassan. I would not characterize this as mistrust. We want clarity for our constituents and for ourselves. And I think that's a reasonable request. We're going to move on. Tessa, did we have any continued public comment? I believe that's a no.
That is a no. And there's also no public comment for the closed session item, which we would take now.
Thank you. So now we are all going to have to log off and log back in for the closed session. I know that's awkward, and we don't want to lose any of you. This closed session item should be very brief. We will meet you there in just a minute. Again, this is just for those board members participating in the closed session item. For those not joining us, we will be back to this session following deliberation on item 12 to report out before adjourning officially today's board meeting. Thank you all very much.
Chair Boss, I'm sorry, excuse me, but Councilmember Baber needs to recuse himself from closed session. I need to have that on the recording.
Okay,
yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I have to recuse myself on this item. It's My understanding that my wife's law firm may have represented one of the defendants, so in abundance of caution, I'm recusing myself.
Thank you, Mr. Baber. And with that, we will log out and log back in for closed session. Thank you all. Okay. I think I'm back. James, can you hear me?
Steve,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. See my
Thank you.
mask?
I can't see you. Oh, there you are. Hey, good mask.
Yeah. Okay.
We have to have the report out and then we will adjourn.
Oh, okay. You don't need me, do you?
I'm not sure. We always need you, Mary.
Like flour dough. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. I got it. Sourdough these days.
You know, Steve, nobody came back.
Can you blame them?
I came back.
Oh, good for you.
Hey, there you go.
There are a few of us. There we go. There's more.
Mayor, this is John Clerk. We're ready to report out whenever you're ready.
Do we need a quorum to report out, John?
Ideally, if you had a quorum, ultimately you are not receiving any information at this point or deliberating on anything. We can verify with Tessa that we have that quorum.
Tessa, are we close?
Not even.
Well, John, I think we're going to roll the dice and report out anyhow.
Okay, this is more for the information for the public. The Board of Directors met in closed session on item 13. They were briefed on the reference property acquisition. At this point, there is nothing to report out on that. When anything is final, it will be disclosed as a delegated action.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you board members. You get gold stars if you've made it back to this reopened general session. Have a great weekend. See you back next Friday.
Have a great Mother's Day.
That's right. See y'all.